Meanwhile, a Bushwick woman still in shock after she witnessed a shooting on the boardwalk in Rockaway. This right after a massive brawl broke out on the Brighton Beach boardwalk, both caught on camera and raising serious concerns about beach safety as summer crowds heat up.
One of the things that's most fascinating to me on this channel is covering stories that typically feature people who don't ever have any context or experience with the kind of behavior that they encounter in the real world. And this is why these people in general, I can't speak to the individual featured in this local news segment, tend to vote for the very same policies that enable the very same criminals who ultimately end up committing these crimes. So in this particular story, we have a woman who was out at the beach. She was actually filming a TikTok video at the time that she was there, and she's described as a Bushwick woman. She happens to be a white woman from Bushwick, and typically these are the types of people, that age, that demographic, that location, that would vote for a defund the police candidate like Zohran Mamdani. And by the way, this is not an isolated thing. This is a well-documented phenomenon. In fact, people were talking about how it's not black people that are voting to defund the police. In fact, only about 19% of black Americans actually support these policies. It is, in reality, those who live in these kind of up-and-coming, wealthy, gentrified neighborhoods that don't actually ever experience criminality, and typically it's from households that make well over $100,000 a year. You guys might remember this clip where defund the police is described as the ultimate luxury belief, but if you don't remember it, I will play it for you right here.
So what is an example of a luxury belief? Well, in 2020, the defund the police movement gained a lot of momentum, and in early 2021, YouGov ran a survey and found that overall, Americans were very much against defunding the police. But when they broke down the results by income category, they found that the highest income Americans were by far the most supportive of defunding the police. There was another survey of just Democratic voters and found that white Democrats were far more supportive of defunding the police than black and Hispanic Democrats. And so as a result, despite the fact that most people didn't want this, many cities across the U.S. subsequently reduced spending for police departments. And this has contributed to the violent crime wave that we've seen over the last couple of years.
And while I can't make specific claims to the woman at the center of this story's voting patterns, the fact is it wouldn't surprise me, based on all the demographic information that we have, if she was a Mamdani Democratic primary voter, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
No, like that's literally
That's definitely a gun. Move further to the water.
Panic on the sand. 24-year-old Calista Kinney was filming a TikTok at Rockaway Beach last Tuesday when she heard what she thought was fireworks.
I saw a bunch of people running.
Now again, to be clear, we obviously don't know personalized individual voter information, whether or not this person's even a registered Democrat, thus making them capable of voting in the Democratic mayoral primary, let alone if she is a Mamdani supporter. But based on the neighborhood and all the context that surrounds her, it seems like it's likely. And I just want to make that upfront known to you guys out there in the audience, because we're not trying to bully a victim who is now scared to go outside based on something that likely she never encountered in her life. Again, if you're from a crime-ridden neighborhood where there are shootings that go down, you are not one to mistake fireworks for gunshots. If you're somebody that isn't used to, these holiday weekends where stuff goes down, then you will be shocked and horrified at the idea that you are running away from quite literally the consequences of progressive policies that you might hold yourself. And this is what this woman is experiencing. And again, it is only going to get worse when you have a defund the police candidate like Mamdani in office. Again, Mamdani has basically said he wants to create the social worker arm to replace the NYPD, and these are the exact same cases that they would be intervening with rather than police. He's also somebody who fought back every single minimal reform to bail reform that was meant to give judges more judgment about remanding certain individuals to custody. And by the way, we talked about it on this channel before. That included some serious violent criminals, including those who committed homicide, that Mamdani was in favor of a same-day automatic release. He also wants everybody to get clemency at age 50. He doesn't want any consequences for youths or teens when they commit crimes. And although we don't have the identity of this particular shooter, a shooting going down at the beach on a holiday weekend involving teens is not something out of the ordinary that we wouldn't expect in a major city like New York City. Again, if it was Chicago, I'd lock it up up, call my shot right now, and we would just wait for the suspects to be arrested. But who knows, this could be a case where it was an individual beef. It could have involved adults. Who knows? Again, right now, we're not making any judgments, but we're just going based on the probability, considering in any given year in the city of New York, upwards of 94% of shooting suspects are Black or Latino, and they tend to skew much younger, not older.
And then I look and I could see kind of the silhouette of the gun. We both kind of saw it at the same time and realized, okay, we need to run.
Police say a 40-year-old man was shot in the shoulder, and the gunman hasn't been caught. The Bushwick woman tells me she's been on edge ever since.
Again, I will reiterate, this is not about insulting this particular woman. She was in a traumatic situation where she was enjoying her time at the beach. She was filming a TikTok video, and then all of a sudden she was running for her life due to rampant criminality that, again, will be even worse if Mamdani gets elected. And she is terrified, and obviously it has shocked her to her core because this is something that she just doesn't normally experience. And a lot of people want to make fun of the overprivileged white people who live in these gentrified areas that, by the way, the only reason she lives in an area like Bushwick is because it was cleaned up by the NYPD, just because they don't know anything. But the fact is, ignorance is not necessarily the same thing as stupidity. So this could be a teachable moment and a time to reach out to somebody and say, hey, we want you to feel safe at the beach. We want you to feel secure. But the thing is, the mechanism that we have to secure these public places that you're now advocating for is the NYPD, is the police, depending on where you're located, because, by the way, Rockaway Beach, I believe, is governed by Queens, but it might have their own little beach police unit or something of the sort that actually caters to that particular area. And again, I won't be surprised if this person is arrested and we find a repeat criminal history, possible releases due to bail reform, and all these other policies that have basically tied the hands of the criminal justice system in the state and the city of New York that ultimately end up leading to these particular outcomes. Again, we have a law called Less is More, which makes it incredibly difficult for the state of New York to violate the probation or parole of people who reoffend while they're on probation or parole. And obviously, the consequences of that are people that we could have yanked off the streets committing these serious crimes. And luckily, in this particular instance, it appears that the person who was actually shot was wounded, not killed. And hopefully, we can tamp down the criminality going forward. But make no mistake about it, when you have a candidate that's running on cutting overtime and not increasing the staffing levels at the NYPD when we're still down post the Black Lives Matter riots, that is going to lead to more criminality because quite literally you can't field officers. And again, we've seen in comparison cities when they bolster their police department, when they actually deploy officers to the high crime areas, that ends up reducing crime even more. And by the way, one of those comparison cities could be older New York, where this was the strategy of the NYPD, which, as I've told you many times on this channel, is the most data-driven police department in the country, possibly even in the world.
It makes you scared to go anywhere, you know, somewhere as peaceful as the beach now has kind of a tainted image in my mind.
So what you're hearing from this girl right here is a normal response to such a traumatic event at a place and at a time that you never ever expect that thing to happen. But the thing is, there are a bunch of people living in neighborhoods that are not quite as nice as Bushwick that expect this all the time. They understand that when the police pull back, the criminal types end up preying on the people in and around their community. And this is one of the reasons why that, again, 81% of Black Americans either want police funding kept where it's at or want an increase in police funding, because these are the people most likely not only to commit crimes, but more importantly, they're the people who are victimized the most by the criminals. Again, we often talk about Black crime in this country and how their rates are much higher, but most people commit crimes in their own areas against people that they know or have close contact with, and that happens to be disproportionately Black people as well. So they understand this. They get that this can go down. A lot of different events and a lot of different 4th of July videos have come out from across the country involving insane shootings. This is not as surprising to them as it is to her. And again, this is one of the reasons why those people don't vote that way. This is one of the reasons why those people understand the value of police, even if they're culturally more sensitive to things like police brutality. They understand that they want good policing and a good function of law enforcement. This should be a very teachable moment for this young lady and other people in these areas of Brooklyn, and hopefully the lesson comes through. Hopefully this experience, this scarring moment, leads to differences in the ballot box, because we still have a general election, and make no mistake about it, somebody has the ability to beat Mamdani, even if that person might be an independent run from Andrew Cuomo, because Eric Adams, like I warned you in the past, is polling absolutely terribly compared to the other candidates, and in some of the polls is actually below Sliwa, the Republican candidate for mayor of the city of New York.
And just one day before that shooting, police responded to chaos here in Brighton Beach after a massive fight broke out here on the boardwalk. Police say 11 people were issued summonses and 6 were arrested, including 2 teens.
You go to the beach to have a good time and you go for like peace and like there's families.
Now again, while this shooting at one beach seems like it's much more serious, much more drastic, obviously it went down again at Brighton Beach. You ended up with a large gathering of teens, a large gathering of youths that participated in a brawl right there. Notice, by the way, that my local news affiliate has decided to blur the images of the suspects being taken away. Also, in addition to that, I did in fact freeze frame the video so you didn't see the tackle of one of the suspects, and wouldn't you know it, they end up interviewing somebody else who looks like a typical Zoran Mamdani voter, somebody who would back defund the police, and this individual also is shocked by the fact that the beach is not a safe environment. Again, these people vote for danger, they vote to release the criminals time and time again. The criminals get out, they start criming as usual, and what do you expect? They just end up shocked. They're like, wow, I can't believe this was a possibility. I can't believe that the police are what protects us from the underlying evils of society. I guess I'll go into the booth and maybe pull that lever for Mamdani again. Now, of course, we don't know. Obviously, she could just be a blue-haired, feminist glasses wearing person that happens to vote for Republicans, a big evil orange man supporter. Nobody could possibly tell. But again, based on the data, based on the numbers, based on the studies, it seems like this person is definitely one of your left-wing progressives, defund the police types, even more so than the previous woman that was featured earlier in the video.
The NYPD tells News 12 there are summer details in place at beaches across the city to try and prevent more violence.
Now, as you can see right there, there are other individuals being arrested at this particular beach brawl in Brighton Beach. It appears like they're blurring the faces of the minors, of the actual teens that are involved in this, because this individual that's in handcuffs does not get the same treatment. But I thought it was important to highlight that they're going out of their way to obscure the identities of these individuals, when in reality, they don't have to. And again, unless they're reporting that they've confirmed the identities of these individuals, it seems like an abundance of caution and catering to the criminals, when in reality, I'm in favor of naming and shaming these particular bad actors. But again, we hear from this person dressed as a goth with blue hair on the beach talking about how this is supposed to be for families. This is supposed to be a peaceful time. This is another individual that doesn't seem to get it. You might be able to ask this person what she thinks are the major problems in the United States of America, and evil white racism will come up within the top 5. Make no mistake about it, if not number 1. And again, that's not reality. The main issue, especially on a local level, is the criminality, and the fact that the NYPD has to deploy these officers to all these different fronts on the beach is not surprising. They're there for a reason, and that's because stuff goes down when they're not around, and even when they are, if they don't have sufficient numbers, it still goes down.
I love the beach, so I definitely want to get back to a place where I feel safe enough to go. But I know that that's going to take time.
So yeah, she wants to get back to a place where she feels safer to go, and I will just say, please don't vote for Zoran Mamdani if you want to get to that position. Vote for somebody who's at least remotely serious about crime, about these particular issues, about addressing them, that talks about the criminals rather than comparing the criminals to innocent Beba Angel Aladdins like Mamdani does, and maybe, just maybe, you'll feel better off going out to these events where there might be teens lurking around, because because, you know, it tends to get a little bit crazy when these teens are completely unchecked.
The NYPD is encouraging anyone who sees suspicious activity to report it.
So the local news report ends up concluding with the NYPD asking people to, you know, report suspicious activity on the beaches and on the parks. And honestly, this is one of those, it goes without saying, and this is completely stupid to attach at the end of this local news segment, because obviously somebody shooting somebody else and a giant brawl would be suspicious activity, and you would hope that somebody would report it. In fact, that's beyond suspicious activity, that's criminal activity, and again, you would hope people would report it. But again, next year when Mamdani gets sworn in, if he is to win in the position of New York City mayor, you might have to call a social worker in order to talk down to these teens or talk up these teens, so hopefully they stop offending. In that case, the social worker will likely suffer a severe beating as well. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a bunch of woke leftists figuring out what teen crime is all about. Till next time.